When it comes to Space Marine 2, one of the great features about the game is that it allows us to play one of many chapters, be that Blood Angels, Iron Hands, Imperial Fist, Space Wolves, Salamanders, you get the picture, okay? But one of the big feedbacks I see is that Valrak, we need more chapters in the game, and hopefully in this video I'm going to show you how to do that. There's plenty of symbols, and along with the colours that we unlock, we can make even more official chapters that have absolutely amazing stories behind them. So let's jump in, let's create some of these chapters, and let's share some of the lore behind them as well. I want to give a big shout out to a friend of mine and also a member of this channel, and that is Chapter Master Moloch. What he's done is gone away and made an entire PDF of everything that I'm about to show you in the background. If you go to the description of this video, you can download that PDF and see all the colours that have been used to make these Space Marine chapters. So please thank him in the comment section and go and check out that document. So first up, as you can see in the background right now, it is the Space Marine chapter known as the ADULATORS. Now the ADULATORS are a Codex Astartes compliant chapter. Their founding and generic origin are still unknown, so we don't know which Primarch that they actually descend from. Now this chapter has held a distant agreement to support the shrine world of Ra Sakia in the Ra subsector. However, by the 41st millennium, their ranks were so stretched in commitments across the galaxy that they declared themselves no longer able to contribute to its defense. Now, as you can see with the chapter colors in the background, we have that yellow helmet, we have that blue color as their main body color, we have the white trim on their shoulder pads, and of course the chapter symbol is a skull, the chapter symbol which you can of course find in this game right now. I actually do like their chapter. I like how the yellow basically breaks up that nice Macraggian blue of their main armor. So yeah, pretty cool color scheme, and the first official chapter on this list. Next up is the Angels Redeemed, and the Angels Redeemed are also a Codex Astartes compliant chapter. They come from an unknown founding and origin, just like the ADULATORS, so that means we don't know who their Primarch is, but, and this is a big but, it has been speculated among the fans that since their chapter badge uses the same symbol as the Dark Angels, that they could hail from the gene lineage of Lion L. Johnson. When it comes to the color scheme, it's probably one of the favorites of mine on this list. I love red power armor. I think red power armor really stands out, but what this has done has mixed some black arms in there as well to break up that red. It gives it kind of a brutal feeling. Red and black really go together on Space Marine power armor. That's why I love the Flesh Tearers so much. They have hints of black on their armor, and it really has that kind of vicious, violent vibe. So yes, absolutely outstanding look of this character. Just imagine equipping this guy on the battlefield in the midst of Tyranids, ripping them apart, in the PvP game modes, ripping enemies apart. I think you're gonna look like an absolute hero of the Imperium. Next up is the Brazen Minotaurs. Is it Minotaurs or Minotaurs? I don't know how we bloody say this these days. I'm going to call it the Brazen Minotaurs. Now, these are not to be mistaken for the Minotaurs that are already in the game. This is a complete different chapter. There's a lot of Minotaur chapters in the Space Marine collection. So the Brazen Minotaurs is a loyalist Codex Astartes compliant Space Marine chapter of, again, unknown founding and origin. Its battle brothers are dedicated to the protection of the Sargosian Reach and the Kandor system. Hailing from the jungle world of Terron, the Brazen Minotaurs are renowned for their bluntness and direct approach to warfare. For them, it is enough not to simply defeat the enemy, they have to eradicate them utterly in order to prevent further attacks. Like other chapters, the Brazen Minotaurs are often used as a blunt instrument to force the more subtle means of warfare, for hand-to-hand combat is where its warriors can gain much renown. One thing to note about this chapter is that they have had close dealings with the Raven Guard chapter, so maybe if you have a friend that likes to represent the Sons of Korax, maybe surprise that friend with this skin and show them the true meaning of brotherhood. And you can see in the background what the actual colour scheme looks like. Of course, you have that bronze type of effect. You have those white shoulder pauldrons with, of course, the Minotaur symbol on it. Tell me what you think. Do you like this? Do you hate it? I think this is one of the coolest chapters on the list. I really like that full-on bronze look that they've got. And next up on the list, we have a chapter that's come back from the dead. We have the Brazen Skulls. The Brazen Skulls was a Loyalist Space Marine chapter of unknown founding and origin. Its notable engagement was when it took part in the Sabbath World's Crusade against the forces of Chaos in support of the reincarnated Saint Sabbat. The Brazen Skulls were eventually wiped out as a chapter in the Sabbath Worlds by 773.M41, but despite the extinction of the chapter during that crusade, their name, colours and heraldry were reinstated during the Ultima founding, and thus of their number are now all Primaris Marines. The Brazen Skulls are determined now to live up to the honour of their lost forebearers and have swiftly earned the reputation for heroism, tenacity and the all-consuming hatred for the forces of Chaos. I think that this is a great chapter to represent in Space Marine 2. They're literally back from the dead, reinforced and ready to crusade again in the Emperor's name. And when it comes to their colour scheme, again, as you've been seeing in the background, you have that full, more or less, Macaque blue, you have the black shoulder pads, the hints of like bronze in their chapter symbol, which is the skull, on their helmet, on the crest and stuff. It really breaks it up and it looks nice on this Marine. Now, this next chapter doesn't really need an introduction. Of course, they come from the gene lineage of Rogel They are a second founding chapter. It's none other than the Crimson Fist. Technically, you can make the Crimson Fist in this game, just without Crimson Fist. Yes, hopefully the developers will be getting that fixed. You can see the full body armor in the background now, the Cantor blue, the silver chest piece, or should I say the silver like Aquila, like skull marking on the chest piece. The chapter symbol is of course the Imperial Fist symbol, but just changed to red, and you change like the background of it to blue and stuff like that. This chapter is very, very renowned in the Imperium. It fought against some of the biggest orc wars ever seen, and it came out the other side. Even though technically they nearly wiped themselves out during those orc battles, they are now reinforced by Primaris Marines, and they are taking the galaxy back in the Emperor's name. If you like Imperial Fist, if you're a huge fan of Rogel Dawn, then I definitely suggest this chapter. It's one of the most well-known Imperial Fist successor chapters. Next up, we have the Crimson Paladins, and the Crimson Paladins are probably one of the shortest chapters on this list. The information that we have in them is more or less non-existent. All that is stated online is that the Crimson Paladins is a Loyalist Codex Astartes compliant Space Marine chapter of, again, unknown origin and founding. The chapter's homeworld is called Fortress, and its Fortress Monastery on that Fortress world is known as the Honor Hold. That is basically all we know about it. As you can see in the background with the colours, they are literally all red. It's like fully red, blood for the blood god red. The chapter symbol is a skull, but on that chapter symbol is kind of like a cross/star emblem on there. And again, you can break this up in game and officially make this chapter if you want to represent the Crimson Paladins. And jumping back to the gene lineage of Rogel Dawn, we have the Hospitallers. Now, the Hospitallers are relatively a young successor chapter of the Imperial Fist, raised during the 24th founding, a little over 2 Terran millennia ago. The Hospitallers is a fleet-based chapter that famously rejected the teachings of the Codex Astartes. The Hospitallers are also known as one of the few chapters to recognize the Imperial cult's teachings that the Emperor of Mankind is indeed a god. The Hospitallers are a firm adherents of the Imperial Creed and maintain close ties with the Adeptus Ministerium Pastorum, upon whose behalf they frequently act. Since the battle for Night World of Fabrius Calavant, the chapter has harboured a considerable ill towards the Iron Hands Loyalist chapter, who assaulted the Hospitaler's flagship and abducted their seneschal, the venerable dreadnought Augustine Galvaro, to claim his chasseur to keep their own first sergeant alive. As you can see in the background with the colours, they're all white, they have red crosses, a bit of a gold trim. A funny thing about the Hospitallers, and this links up with the Black Templars, is that in real life lore, the Hospitallers actually should have the Black Templar colours, and the Black Templars should have the Hospitalis colours. But 40k, who designed these chapters, basically just switched around their colour scheme. But nonetheless, it's still a cool colour scheme. Next up, we have the Iron Ravens, and the Iron Ravens, of course, are still a Loyalist Space Marine chapter composed entirely of Primaris Space Marines. They were created from the gene lineage of the Raven Guard, meaning that they belong to the gene lineage of Corax, and their chapter was raised during the Ultima founding. Now, the Iron Ravens are specialists in sudden, shocking drop assaults. Their 10th company elements may spend months building up local intelligence and preparing the ground so that when the main body of the Iron Raven force arrives, screaming down into battle in their drop pods, they strike with such a decisive and destructive precision that the war is won within a single unstoppable sword blow. The chapter has taken to calling this tactic the Blade of Corax. Many Iron Ravens were originally members of Rebooty Gilliman's Unnumbered Sons and fought during the early years of the Indomitus Crusade. And you can see that their chapter symbol matches that of their forefathers, which is the Raven Guard. They still have that Raven Guard symbol. This time, though, their main colour is basically lead belcher, and more of an iron, silvery look to them. They do break that up a bit with a bit of the blue on the shoulder pads, a bit of gold on the trim of the shoulder pads and on the chest crest as well, and of course that blue helmet and a red stripe down the centre of it. Again, a nice, cool colour scheme, and it's nice to see the Raven Guard, you know, stretch out and stop being like this Shadow Force. These are more like direct, blunt down, straight into the throat of the beast, taking you out. I like what I see. And staying on the theme of Ravens, we have Knights of the Raven. Now, the Knights of the Raven are a Codex Astartes compliant Space Marine chapter. They were raised during an unknown founding, but it was around the latter half of the 38th millennium. And of course, they come from the successors of the Raven Guard, which means that their genetic makeup is that of Corax. Now, very few details of the Knights of the Raven chapter are known to the wider Imperium, even within the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes, the Death Watch, and the Holy Ordos of the Inquisition. When they fight alongside other Imperial forces, they communicate only when necessary and use their own cryptic battle tongue amongst themselves. The chapter's homeworld and fortress monastery is located on a feudal world of Coralax. In recent history, for unknown reasons, the Knights of the Raven came to blows with the Astartes from the Aurora chapter. The resulting conflict was apparently ended by Marnius Calgar of the Ultramarines. In penance for shedding blood of fellow Astartes, they are currently fighting a guerrilla war against the Tyranids of the remaining splinters of Hive Fleet Kraken. And next up, we have the Metamarines. No, this is not a joke. This is not me being meta on the tabletop. This is a chapter literally called the Metamarines. And the Metamarines, and again, are a Loyalist Space Marine successor chapter of unknown origin and founding. The most renowned action of the Metamarines is their participation in the 13th Black Crusade, where they aided other Imperial forces in the defense against Abaddon and the forces of chaos unleashed upon the world of Cadia and its surroundings. Well, we all know that they weren't meta in that because Cadia fell and it was blown up. But nonetheless, you can still make a Metamarine in Space Marine 2. Again, the colours in the background, I actually really do like this colour scheme. You've got that like silvery look to the arms, the shoulder pads, the legs, but you have that blue chest piece, the blue helmet with the yellow stripe and the blue power pack on there, and the chapter symbol is pretty cool as well, which again you can go in and absolutely make. I think all the colours of this chapter bounce off each other and it looks really, really nice. And moving on the list, we have the Nemesis chapter. Now, the Nemesis chapter is a Loyalist Codex Astartes compliant chapter. The Nemesis chapter is a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines Legion. It's descended from those Ultramarine companies of the 22nd chapter who fought alongside the then Loyalist Night Lords Legion during the brutal purgation campaign of the Great Crusade. Like their ancient predecessors, the Nemesis chapters specialize in needed exterminators actions. So this is the chapter you call in when all hope has lost. If you need a planet destroyed, then the Nemesis chapter is there to bring down that orbital bombardment. And you can see in the background again, the chapter color scheme, all green, just basically like Dark Angels. The chapter symbol, again, is that skull on there, that white skull this time. And since it is a Codex Astartes chapter that abide by the big book of rules by Gilliman, let's say, you're going to be marking your companies down like, you know, red and third company, fifth is going to be black on the rims and stuff like that. But yeah, there we go. Another Ultramarine successor chapter that wasn't included in the Ultramarine pack, which Focus and Saber put out as part of the first part of the DLC. Now, if you like wolves, but you don't want to be associated with the Space Wolves, then this chapter may be for you. These are the Red Wolves. Now, the Red Wolves are, again, a Loyalist Space Marine chapter from an unknown origin and founding. The Red Wolves were originally claimed the planet of Bloodfall in the Segmentum Solar as their chapter homeworld. During the Indomitus Crusade, the Red Wolves were reinforced like many other existing chapters with the Primaris Space Marine genetic line. Following the Battle of Baal, the remnants of High Fleet Leviathan assaulted Bloodfall. Despite the ferocious resistance, the Red Wolves' fortress monastery ultimately fell to an assault by Tyranid Bio-Titans. After taking heavy losses, the surviving Red Wolves managed to evacuate off-world using vessels of their remaining chapter fleet. Now they seek vengeance against a Tyranid foe. This could be a great way to unleash your inner, wolf inside of you in Space Marine 2. There's lots of Tyranids. It makes perfect sense to roll a Red Wolf chapter Marine and unleash that inner beast within inside you. And moving on the list, we have the Rift Stalkers. The Rift Stalkers is a Loyalist Space Marine chapter composed entirely of Primaris Space Marines. They were also created during the Ultima founding, and they come from the gene lineage of the Raven Guard, aka Corax is their Primarch. Now, the Rift Stalkers is a fleet-based chapter, and it has been tasked to patrol the Citadrix Maledictum. In addition to slaying the Emperor's enemies, the Rift Stalkers seek a method of reconnecting with the hundreds of thousands of worlds cut off from Terra in the galactic north of the Imperium Nihilus. Now, one of the cool things about their color scheme, which you're seeing in the background right now, you can see that full on like white kind of color to them, but one of their shoulder pads, the right side of their shoulder quadrant, incorrect, actually is lined with a company number and the company colors. So it is within the Codex Astartes, but only on that shoulder pad. So you don't mark both shoulder pads, you only mark one of them. Next up, we have the Silver Skulls. The Silver Skulls are, of course, a Codex Astartes compliant Loyalist chapter, and they are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Now, this chapter has been at the forefront of the Emperor's Wars since its birth and fought alongside other Ultramarines, so-called progenitors, successor chapters on numerous occasions as if they were its own kin. For many Terran years, the Silver Skulls individuals believe themselves to be proud ultramarine successors of the second founding, but the passage of time has eroded all record of their true origins. Dun dun dun. But after the 13th Black Crusade, their beliefs were confirmed to be true when the Primarch Guilliman was resurrected and the chapter was officially recognized as one of the Avenging Sun's own and received an infusion of Primaris Space Marines drawn from Guilliman's lineage. The Silver Skulls have earned their reputation for achieving victory for the Imperium of Man, no matter the odds, against stacked enemy odds. And staying with the skull theme, let's take a look at the Skull Bearers chapter. Not a lot known about these, but what we do know could be big. It says the Skull Bearers is a Loyalist Codex Astartes compliant Space Marine chapter of unknown founding, which believes itself to be a successor of the chapter of the Executioners, but that belief is unknown. The chapter hails from the world of Kelitros. Now, if the chapter does come from the Executioners, then this means that they are from the gene lineage of Rogul Dawn, the greatest, the strongest, the most beloved, and the most loyal of all the Emperor's Primarchs. And getting towards the end of the list now, we have the Sons of Medusa, which is probably known to a lot of people, a very, very popular chapter this. The Sons of Medusa, of course, is a Loyalist successor chapter, Marines drawn from the unforgiving Iron Hands chapter, whose existence was ratified by an Imperial Edict of the High Lords of Terror. The Sons of Medusa is a chapter with a history of ruthless efficiency in a merciless persecution of the Imperium of Man's foes. Like their forebearers, the Sons of Medusa are extreme devotees of the Emperor of Mankind and look with disgust upon those who lack their strength and will. They are a distinguished chapter whose long roll of battle honours can be tracked back to the early 37th millennium. Just like their forefathers, the Sons of Medusa are afflicted by the almost obsessive desire to replace what they perceive as their weak flesh with the strength provided by cybernetic replacements. They also maintain an extremely close link with the Adeptus Mechanicus and their belief in the machine god. And lastly on this list, a few lines dedicated to the White Minotaurs. Again, I told you there's a lot of Minotaurs chapters a part of the Space Marine makeup. This time it's the White Minotaurs, and they had, of course, a Loyalist Codex Astartes compliant chapter of unknown origin and founding. Almost nothing else is known about it in current Imperial records. Maybe this is the time for you, the player, to represent the White Minotaurs on the battlefield and start making their history. Are you going to do it? Are you going to take to the stars and get this chapter some lore made? It's entirely up to you now, the player. Anyway, Chaperonios, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching this video of more official chapters in Space Marine 2. I think my next video on chapters may be unofficial chapters, fan-made chapters, like I've made my Reclaimers of Dawn. You've probably made your chapter. If we can get that and show it off in the game, maybe that could make a pretty cool video, right? The community coming together and showing off their cool color schemes. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Please leave your thoughts and your feedback on the video. Who was your favorite chapter on this list? See ya. Have a great day, evening, night, wherever you are in the world, and bye-bye.